Hi there, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Anita Adefuye. I have no easy way to describe myself other than that I wear many hats. And one of those hats is that I talk about suicide, I talk about mental health, I talk about sexual violence because these are all things that I have personally experienced. And in the course of my healing journey, I have done a lot of reading, research, um, counseling. Um, yeah, so and I have developed a passion to talk about these things because there are things that just shouldn't be happening in our world. But unfortunately, they do. And today is particularly important because it happens to be World Suicide Prevention Day. And this is a day that has been in existence since 2003, a day set aside to create awareness and educate on the dangers of suicide, how to prevent them. And that's what we are here to talk about today. So today is not an easy topic. So yeah, and if you're looking for more information, more resource, I have a lot on my website where I blog about things like this, loudsilences.org. Feel free to check them out. And yeah, if you haven't subscribed here already, please subscribe, like this video, comment. I'd like to hear your thoughts. It's always nice to contribute to the conversation. And be sure to share with friends and family because today's theme is action through hope. All right. And one action you can take is definitely to share this video. So I want to dedicate today's topic to specifically talk about suicide. And what I want to talk about is why teenagers or youth commit suicide. Now, I had previously done a video where I talk about why people commit suicide, and particularly even Christians, but I want to focus today on youth. And the reason is because, and I have my notes here, I started writing down some of my points, so you'll know. Anyway, so I have my notes here, and I'm just going to go talk about two quick statistics that I find. So over the pandemic, it was said that suicide rates really went up, all right? And that about 4 in 10 high school students um, talked about having extreme feelings of hopelessness, depression, and wanting to end their lives. 4 in 10 high school students. That's a lot of statistics. And also, and this has been a problem for a long time now, suicide is actually the second leading cause of death in people 10 to 20. I need to check that. In people 10 to 24 years old. Yes. That's a very huge chunk of the young generation. And that is not cool at all. By whatever lens we want to look through this, it is not cool. And so I want to speak to that because as an African and as a Christian, I hear a lot of questions like, well, what do young people know that they're committing suicide? I hear questions like, well, you didn't live in our day where you had to go and fetch water a mile away or whatever number of miles away. Well, you didn't live through the wars. Well, you didn't live through this, you didn't live through that. Now, it is even more serious when you are in a first world country, like some of us are, and then you hear things like, what are you complaining about? You have everything. You have access to internet, you have access to free education, you have access to this and access to that. What are you complaining about? Now, if you're from specifically certain kinds of countries that I am from, you also hear things like, well, you're not the one out there busting your to work. I do know what to replace that with, so I apologize. We hear things like that. But the truth is that those things don't help anybody. All right. And once upon a time, I used to be very angry when I hear those things. But I've had a lot of people challenge me, and I thank you to people who always challenge me. I love having people around me who challenge my thoughts. I love to challenge your thoughts if you have thoughts that I think, I'd like to seek to understand. Anyway, and I've had people tell me, hey, but what if people just don't know? Right? And I mean, it's one of the reasons why I've even also shared my story in my book, Reve-Healed. But even if you don't know, that's okay, which is why I'm here and which is why I want to share this video. And I want to give you some insights as to why young people commit suicide because it is prevalent and it really shouldn't be happening. All right. So I'm just going to run quickly through this. And I have some points to make as to the why, and I'll provide some solutions on some of the things that I think you can do. This is no exhaustive list, I should say, because I'm sure there's, and it doesn't, it's not a one size fit all, quite frankly, but I think it'll be very helpful. So number one, family experiences. Yes, charity does begin at home, and that is the truth. And I feel like the reflection is too much for me, so I'm just gonna take this off. And I'm sorry, I don't edit my videos because I wear many hats, like I said, and I'm a busy mom, so it feels like I'm having a conversation with my friend anyway when I don't edit my videos and I just let everything through. All right, so charity begins at home. Family experiences. I grew up in a broken home. As a matter of fact, I said the home was never even together to begin with. So, and if you're like me, those things have a way of impacting a child. Growing up, I had friends who called me a bastard because they didn't know who my parents were. I lived with my auntie, and she was physically abusive. I hate to say, but I mean it is what it is. She was physically abusive and maybe emotionally so even. All right, unfortunately. And if a child is in that kind of situation, and even when I lived with my dad, my mom was never there. My dad, was quite randy. And so that didn't help. So I had people who would make fun of me, and just even being in that situation in itself was traumatic enough. So family experiences, what is your home like? Is there constant conflict? Maybe your family isn't like mine was. Maybe you're both together as both parents, you're there, but is there conflicts? Is there fighting? Is there violence? Because if there is, chances are that you're impacting your child and you don't even know. All right, so please check your home. What does your home look like? What's the environment? Number two, peer pressure. Now, this can be anything. All right, and we'll break this down a little bit more as we go even. But peer pressure, for whatever reason, I've seen, students will taunt another student to the point of death. And I know it's easy. Look, here's the thing. Let's even establish one thing. A teenager, a youth, anybody who's not an adult, their brain is still developing. So they will not be able to process certain information as well as you as an adult will do. And I want you to always bear that at the back of your mind. I work with teenagers, so I can tell you this. And I do a lot of research, a lot of reading. I attend courses, I attend trainings, I attend classes to help me learn how to relate with them. And I talk to so many of them. I like to think that I have a good relationship with a lot of the ones that are currently under my jurisdiction, right? And one of the things that I learned at some point, and this was a game changer for me, was that you actually have to repeat the same thing about 3,000 times. 3,000 times to a teenager before it sticks. 3,000 times. Think about that. So when you're getting angry and you're saying, hear me, parents can relate. I have kids, they're not teenagers yet, but they're getting to that age gradually. I still have about 4 years to go, but I'm having fun so far. And it's even the younger the child is, the more number of times you actually have to repeat the same thing. You hear yourself say things like, how many times have I told you this? It's 3,000 times you have to say it. I'm sorry, but that's the statistic. So get going and get saying. Sorry. Anyway, so peer pressure, really, they can't process things the way you will process. So when you're telling them, but how can you let your friend do this to you? I'm sorry, it's not sticking yet, all right? When we get to where you need to help them, you'll see one of the things you can do to help them in that. So peer pressure, whatever that might look like, okay? Racism, geez. I'm a Black woman sitting on this end of the screen. Even as adults, we face racism. It exists. Even in Canada, yes, unfortunately, it exists. All right. And I mean, if as an adult, you know how you feel. Think about what a child feels. It is very traumatic for children to feel racism. I talk to some of these kids, and I hear them say things like, oh, when I came, nobody would even talk to me in my class. That is heartbreaking, right? There's all these people, nobody wants to talk to you. They single you out, not because of anything, but because of your skin color. Even as an adult, sometimes it is it is always a very hard pill to swallow. If you're feeling it, your child is feeling it even much more. Because remember, their brain isn't even fully developed to be able to, deal with some of these things the way you would as an adult. So resilience is a journey for everybody, but even much more so for children. All right. So racism is a huge reason why teenagers especially will commit suicide. Depression and other mental health conditions. That's number 4 thing. Now, any of all the things that we mentioned here today can cause depression. But here's the thing. Depression can also come from hormonal changes. So puberty stage. Like, for the life of me, I used to wonder. I mean, think about it. Think about it. Think about your children that have gone through puberty stage. They started having some weird mood swings and changes. True or false? I mean, as a woman, even as a woman, we go through hormonal changes all the time. And I know how much my emotions change with that. So again, break it down to the age and level of a child and think about what that does to them. So please, let's be mindful of that. Depression can be caused by anything, even feelings of overwhelm, stress. My God, some children are in like 1,000 things. I have a system for my family where we actually break down what they do per quarter, in a way that, so winter activities in winter, and it's just one thing. There's the one thing that is consistent, and then there are things that are built into timelines. So it helps give some. At the end of the year, you realize your child did like a dozen things, but then it feels well spaced out for them. That's not the experience. Some parents have their kids in like 1,000 things, and I get it. You're trying to get them to be better. You want that college application to look good, but you still want them to do chores, to give you best grades that they can offer. You want them to be the best at everything. Y'all are confessing that they're the heads and not the tail. Yes, but while you're doing that, remember that even Jesus rested. God rested. And please let them rest. Stress itself can cause depression. Lack of good sleep can cause depression. Any of these things that we talk about here today can cause depression, which in turn can lead to suicide. And previous suicidal attempts actually increases the risk for someone to be suicidal yet again. So please watch out for your children. Check their mental health regularly. Okay, alcohol and substance abuse. So this is one of those things that might also fall under peer pressure, quite frankly, because some kids have been pressured, unfortunately, into the use of alcohol and other substances, right? And the more they use it, again, the brain is not fully developed. So when you introduce things like alcohol, when you introduce things like pornography, when you introduce things like masturbation into the life of teenagers, and no, don't let anybody deceive you. Kids don't need those things. I mean, you can teach them about reproductive systems without necessarily telling them how to have sex. I mean, that's insane. That's ridiculous. You can teach them without necessarily exposing them to pornography. Those things are neurotoxins. They actually impact their brains negatively. The brain is still growing, and you're causing confusion in that brain when you're introducing things like that into their lives. Now, unfortunately for some of them, and I mean, I know that when I was growing up, there were kids who would stumble again. Back to charity begins at home. There were kids whose parents would watch these things at home. They had them stashed somewhere, and we'll find it, peer pressure, we'll look at it. Some of us would even invite other people to come and look at it. And these things were impacting all of us, and we did not know it. Okay, so please watch out for, your kids. Alcohol, substance abuse, those things are not good for kids. They might be pressured. It might be something you may have allowed in your home, or it might be something they're watching you do. Who knows? All right, so number 6, behavioral problem. Now, some kids might be shy compared to others. Some kids might be slower than others. Some kids might not be as brilliant in the way we think of brilliance. And all of these things might be behavioral learning capabilities, and how you're responding to that can actually drive your child to extreme thoughts and feel like they are irrelevant, they are useless. And these are words that sometimes you hear young people use. I feel useless. My parents are always mad at me. I can't get anything right. When you keep hearing your child use those kinds of phrases over and over and over and over, please pause and think and retrace your steps if you need to, or figure out what's going on. Okay? So behavioral problems, learning disabilities, things like that actually impact kids because sometimes they get made fun of. It's not just their skin colors they get made fun of. Some kids might be just even the way they're wired differently. All right, they can get made fun of. And so you want to watch out for behavioral issues that your kids might have. And again, in modeling, in family experiences, chances are that a violent home would produce a violent child. And when there is persistent anger, the kid's brain is trying to think, why am I always so angry? They don't like themselves being angry. Their teenage or young brain tells them, oh, there's a way out of this pain and anger of being angry, or whatever it is that they might be struggling with behaviorally speaking. And that end is kill yourself. And unfortunately, it is not the answer. All right. In one of my last videos, remember, I mentioned that when people commit suicide, they're not really trying to end their lives, they're just trying to end the pain. Same applies to teenagers, to young people. So, behavioral changes. Number 7, knowledge of other suicides. Now, anytime suicide occurs in any school or any place, I remember one time I was talking to a child, and there was a story that broke out about somebody who had committed suicide. I don't want to go into specifics. And I remember this child just started crying and said, "This is my friend." And it turned out she herself started struggling. I remember reaching out to the parents and saying, hey, your child tells me you're related to this person. And they said, yeah, they grew up with our kid. Like, it's just such a sad story. And I said, yeah, your child is impacted by the news of that child. Like, I mean, even as simple as not even knowing the person is impactful enough to a young person. One, because if they can see some relatability of their issues to that person's issue, chances are they start to think, well, that person doesn't have to be here to feel that anymore. Maybe I should toe the same path. That's one. Two, the pain of it could have been me. It's enough to drive a child into depression, which in turn can push them into suicide themselves. So, knowledge of when you've heard about other young people committing suicide and you're aware that your child is aware, when suicide happens within their school, please do something. Don't just leave them to themselves. All right. And then easy access to guns and other weapons. Thank God we live in Canada. But it doesn't take away the fact that there are other deadly weapons that kids can access. So it's your home. Again, suicide proof. I guess I'll put it that way. All right. And then bullying and cyberbullying. Oh my God, this is a big thing. A big thing. Sometimes people are not even aware. Like, I've heard stories of kids who follow other kids into the bathrooms, take pictures of their nudes, however they do it. Take pictures of whatever the case is. They post something online, someone comments, they make fun of them, they bully them. Some of them may have, peer pressure. Maybe someone says, oh, I dare you do this. They opened up their boobs and someone takes a picture. Next thing, it's all over the internet. Like, anything can happen, right? Anything can happen. We don't want those things to happen, but sometimes these things unfortunately happen. Bullying. If your child is suffering bullying, please find a way to, help them through it. If you need to go and have a conversation with the school, man, I remember one time I told the school, like, I've sent you guys emails like 3 times. I have made this complaint. My child comes home, talks about this person. Nothing is being done. Like, y'all don't want to see. It's a cliche, angry Black woman. You don't want to see what that looks like in real life. Like, I will stand up for my children any day, anytime. I will face whatever I need to face. However, caution. Not every child wants to go and do drama. So please be aware as well of how your child needs to be helped and help them accordingly. And then finally, abuse. For me, personally, it was a number of all of these things plus abuse. Abuse was present in my life. Child sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse. They were all things that were present in my life. Neglect. And I felt it so deeply and it hurt me so deeply. And so, of course, that fueled depression, that fueled other mental health issues, and I was very suicidal. I should also even mention something, with the bullying piece, body image as well for kids. Kids get bullied for their body image. So please, especially if you have a child who might be slightly overweight, teach them about self-confidence. Yes, teach them about all the weight loss and healthy things and all that, but help them to learn how to love themselves on the way to wherever you need them to get to or they need to get to. Now, quickly, how can you help your child? Now, today is about action through hope. So you have to be hopeful yourself. You can't give what you don't have. Remember that. So you have to be hopeful and you have to model what you want your children to be. You cannot be a violent person, always moody, always angry, and then you expect to raise a happy, sweet, loving child. It's not possible, okay? So model what you want and make your home conducive. Charity indeed begins at home. If we can get it right at the home front, our society will be, generally speaking, much better for it, and that is the truth. Teach your children how to respect others. Teach them how to respect themselves, how to set boundaries even for themselves. Okay, that's number one. Number two, let your kids know that it's okay to ask questions, and yes, even questions about suicide. Part of making your home conducive is that your children can come to you and they can ask you questions. Number three, build a community around your child. I always tell people, see, if your child is not talking to you, they're talking to someone. Who is that person? It better be someone who can lead them on the right path and not someone who is leading them otherwise. But I can tell you this, there is no vacuum in the world. Something always fills something up. So if your child is not talking to you, who are they talking to? You want to know who that person is and be sure. Build a community. Find mentors for your children. It doesn't have to be one person. Different things you want to see in your children's life, let them have somebody. Truth be told, as they get older, you will become uncool. They don't want to talk to you. It's nothing personal. Again, sometimes it's the way they just process things at that age. Everybody is cool except their parents, period. That's how sometimes they think. But again, which is another point that I want to raise, is that be involved in their lives. When you're involved in their lives from their infancy stage, it becomes easier for you to be their number one go-to person when they're in trouble. When they know that I can always trust mom, even if she's mad at me, she'll still help me through this. She won't judge me. She won't condemn me. She'll walk me through it. When they know that about you, the truth is that you'll be their number one go-to person. So make yourself, not just your home, but yourself conducive. All right. You and your partner, your husband or your wife cannot just both be angry all the time. One of you has to, sometimes in my home, it depends on what the situation is. We switch places. But we cannot both be very angry at the same time. They have to be able to have one person who can draw them and say, okay, all right, sweetie, what did you do that? One person can be going all ballistic. One person has to be able to go all whatever the opposite of ballistic is. All right. So support groups, church, sports, whatever it is, find mentors and build a community around your child. Seek professional help if you need to. And in addition, do periodic mental health check. I don't even know how many of us do periodic health check for our children, but if you don't, please do. If you do, add to it mental health check. It is very important. The same way, if your child is sick, you'll take them to see a doctor. Oh, doctor, my child is sick. The same way, if you feel like you've noticed a consistent pattern of behavior that you're not comfortable with, take them to see maybe not therapist, or a psychiatrist. I think. Yeah, well, take them to see a professional. Period. All right. And then listen to your child. Oh my God, this is very important. Listen to what they say. Listen to what they don't say. Listen to their pauses. Listen to their sighs. Listen to their silence. Listen to their body language. Listen, listen, listen. And listen well. A lot of kids sometimes will say things through silence. And if you're from where I'm from, where kids are not to be heard but seen, first of all, that's a very horrible culture. And not even in today's world. Please listen to your child. Draw them close. Really listen to them. I don't know how to say that more than really listen. Watch for them. Pay attention to them. Know when to put everything aside and just give them that full undivided attention. When they want to talk to you, really be there. Anyway, answer their questions as much as you can. If you can't, be honest, be truthful. Kids are smarter than we think. I know that we say their brain is not fully developed, but then there's a depth of smartness that they have that, adults think that we have, but quite frankly, we don't, because we just don't. I'm sorry. Anyway, be empathetic to your child. Quite frankly, be empathetic to your child. And that goes hand in hand with listening and showing them compassion. Look, there are times that you want to be mad, but you just tone it down. Not because you cannot choose to be mad, but sometimes you just want to win them over first. I don't know if that makes sense, but you just want to win them over first. All right. And then know who they hang out with. Because like I said, peer pressure, in fact, even with cyberbullying and bullying in general, I've seen kids go online and do challenges. And it wasn't like they actually set out trying to kill themselves. They were doing challenges and they have killed themselves. I guess it's considered suicide still, but it was from just, something that was happening. Know who they hang out with online and offline. And here's where I would say, look, I'm still thinking through this, and I don't have all the answers because I haven't raised a teenager. But from communications and conversations, and from learnings and from trainings that I have done, I can tell you this: I am convinced more and more that there is probably an appropriate age to give your child a phone. Or even if you're going to give them earlier, and for me, that age is nothing less than 16. If they're not old enough to own a driver's license, they're probably not old enough to own a phone. If they're not old enough to work, they're probably not old enough to own a phone, because I ain't going to pay nobody's phone bill. You need to make a call to your friends. I don't care. Hang out with them if you want to online. I need to just know who they are, who their parents are, what their home is like. And I mean, not because you want to be anything, but at least if you know what you're dealing with, because like I said, I was from a broken home, right? So it would be unfair for someone to judge me. But I had friends whose parents knew the conditions in my home to some degree. And when I showed up, it also informed how they, remember community? It also informed how they helped to support me. So I will get counsel from some of these parents because they know that I'm likely not getting that counsel at home because my mother is not there. And so things like that, that's why it's important to know. Not so you go and start judging anybody. Please don't judge nobody. I hate judgments. All right. So know who they hang out with, online, offline. Very important. And then don't dismiss them. It's not everything that is teenage brain. It's not everything that is teenage drama. It's not everything that is puberty drama. Sometimes their feelings are real. As a matter of fact, before you even offer any advice to anything they share with you, validate their feelings first. It might seem silly to you, but in their minds at that moment, it is a big deal. That makes it a big deal, period. Look, the bulk of those who are watching this might be African oriented and all Christians and all Black people in general, because I find a lot of us are quite similar no matter what part of the world we're from. We're Black. But I know that it might be a little challenging for some of these things because it will challenge what we think we know, right? But there's a lot of unlearning we need to do, and that's the truth. And for our children's sake, we need to understand that we live in a different time, and that time has its own unique challenges. We went through what we went through and survived. We think. A lot of us are just broken people who now are trying to unbreak ourselves. We can't unbreak ourselves, but we're trying to mend and we're trying to repair. But knowing what we know and knowing how we would have loved for our parents to support us, why aren't we offering the same to our children? And that's one question that for me, I ask myself every day, is to say, if my parents treated me this way, or if wherever I lived they treated me this way, was there a better way I hope they treated me at this age? If the answer is yes, even if I don't know what that answer is, because sometimes, honestly, you really can't give what you don't have, I go in search of what that answer is. I have people who are friends in my life who have older kids. I watch them. I watch a lot of people. I observe who is training their child in a certain way. I see the results coming out of the children's lives, and I want to pattern the ones that are succeeding. The ones that are not succeeding, I sit down and ask, why is this not succeeding? When I go for trainings, I ask questions. I like going for trainings, and there are lots of free trainings online. All right. So please, here are some things that you can do. Here's how you can support your children. Okay. We don't want to see young people taking their lives. I don't want to see that. It's not pretty. These lives are given to us. The Bible says that God has given us, that the reason that God brings us together as man and wife is so that we can produce for him a godly offspring. And so if you're producing a godly offspring, the expectation is not for you to tear them down with your own hands, but to build them up and to support them. We are stewards in the lives of these children. God will ask of us what we did with the lives that he committed into our hands. And that's where I close. Pray for them. Pray for them. Pray with them. Pray them through. I know sometimes it might be hard, especially when they're not going in the direction we hope they will, but never give up on them. Show them that love. Show them that empathy. Let them know that you are always there for them. That is sometimes one of the greatest anchor a person can have. That even when they want to take their lives, they should be able to think about one person and say, well, how will this impact this person? And sometimes that is all the anchor that somebody needs. And I bet you, as someone who has been suicidal, I bet you that there were times I would ask that question, how does this impact this one person or these people? And if I don't like the answer, it will make me say, I need to get through one more day. And here I am. and we want these children to get there, and they will. But you and I have a part to play. I hope this has been helpful to you. I'd like to hear your comments, thoughts, and how you are supporting others, or how you can support, what your thoughts are on how you can support. These things really need to get edited. But it is what it is. We work what we have. Well, we're on the way to where we want to be. All right. So I look forward to your comments. Please like, share, subscribe, do whatever. But let's get this information out there to as many people as possible. And do your parts to make sure that you're spreading hope through action. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.